was very young. So, and it reoccurred, you know, a little scary for that kind of thing. But I'm excited to be with all of you wonderful survivors and purveyors today to talk about this and to bring a lot of attention to ovarian cancer, because I think when we talk about women's health, the focus is always breast cancer. But, you know, for those of us that have experienced ovarian cancer and understand all of the things that come with it, everything from fertility issues to dealing with chemo to dealing with I caught it when I was 19. I have a 16-year-old. So now I've got to think about, how do I handle that with my kid? Do I scare her because I've got the BRCA gene? Do I take her right away? Or do I let her kind of wait until she's ready to make that decision? So I'm excited that we have this wonderful community of supporters and physicians and just this great network that we can all talk to each other and exchange stories and exchange, you know, different ways of dealing with stress and anxiety, because beyond just the medication, it's the mental anguish and the mental stress of dealing with this diagnosis and then the constant fear of reoccurrence. So this is a good opportunity for us to connect with one another and share this journey. So thank you guys for being here.
Perfect. Thank you, Tammy. Aaliyah, you want to do maybe a 30-second introduction?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Aaliyah Whipple. I am a member of BRCA Strong. I am BRCA2 positive. I was diagnosed with stage 1 triple negative breast cancer in January of this year. I found out I was BRCA positive last February, so almost a year to the date. Finding out I was BRCA positive, I also found out I had breast cancer. I was getting ready to do preventative mastectomy when the cancer was discovered, so it was a blessing for me. I'm currently going through chemo treatment. I've already finished 4AC, and this Friday I will be on number 9 of Taxol. I'm coming down to the end. So you may not see me smiling because every week is getting tougher, but I am smiling on the inside. I'm very happy and I'm very blessed, and nice to meet everyone.
Thank you so much for being a part of BRCA Strong and sharing your story. Allison?
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm here mostly to support all of you and my good friend Jen Hyder, who we worked together on male ovarian cancer, and she's become a really dear friend. And I did not know anything about ovarian cancer before she invited me to be a part of male ovarian cancer. I was the typical 49-year-old woman who thought a pap smear was a screening. And so the last 6 months of my life, I've been just incredibly passionate about spreading awareness and meeting younger and younger women that are assuming this is their grandmother's cancer and not listening to their bodies and not knowing what to listen to. And I find a lot of solace in, I've always worn my nails teal, and now I have an opportunity to start a teal talk with everybody that compliments me on them. So I'll let Jen go more into that, but I want to give you guys the floor.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining. Jen, you want to go ahead and do a short introduction?
We can't hear you.
Okay, can you now?
Yep.
Okay, I think I was muted. Yeah, so I'm Jen Hyder. I'm a marketer and own a marketing agency in Boulder, Colorado. And my maternal grandmother died of ovarian cancer in her 30s. And other than that, I had no, relationship or knowledge with the disease at all until a friend of mine, her mother, died of ovarian cancer. And I was asked to kind of step in and build a campaign around awareness. And what we really noticed was that there was a big gap in reaching women in their 30s and 40s and 50s. So we created Nail Ovarian Cancer. And through that journey, I actually found out that I was having like all of the symptoms, and I was like, what is going on? Like, how can this be? You know, is this like psychosomatic? Is it, you know, is it real? And so I did advocate for myself, got the BRCA test, which did turn out negative, thankfully, but did find out I had a sizable cyst, and so I need to get a hysterectomy and go down a whole other journey with my own health. So it's been, you know, a really eye-opening experience for me to be marketing something that I'm the target of. And I'm just grateful to be able to meet, you know, expand my knowledge in the community and really get to know everybody and their stories.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate it. Let's see, who did I miss? Shirley. If you just want to do, I guess what we could do is, because we do have some highlighted speakers tonight, and we'll just let them do a short introduction, and then obviously we can go into depth and speak more about the stories and get all the information and conversate upon each other to see how we can educate and just help each other and support each other as best as we can.
So just do a little blurb. Hi everyone, my name is Shirley. I was diagnosed in 2017 at the age of 40 with no real family history of, ovarian cancer, stage 3C. No real family history of anything, but because of my age, they did some genetic testing and I found out I carried the BRCA1 mutation. So after my treatment for ovarian cancer, went into preventative treatment to reduce the risk of breast cancer. And then in 2019 had recurrent metastasis and went through secondary surgery and treatment again. And am now currently growing hair and thriving on a PARP inhibitor, which is, you know, targeted for you know, the BRCA mutation and hopefully prolonging time in between recurrence. I work actually with an organization that provides counseling and psychosocial support to women and their caregivers or families that are affected by ovarian cancer, and try to just kind of get out and do as much advocating and raising awareness as possible to you know, expand just what I didn't know. I had no idea, you know, and if I can even reach one person and help in that way, I'd like to do that. So
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's see, Kate, you want to do ours? Let's see if we can unmute her. Hi, Kate.
Hi everyone. BRCA2, found BRCA strong when I found out I was BRCA2. And here I am, listening to all your stories and being supportive for all of you.
Thank you. Kamali.
Hi, I was diagnosed with stage 3C ovarian cancer. It's been less than a year, so I'm kind of still in that stage where I can still cry very easily, and I can still feel, I still dream of myself with hair, which is really strange. And I found out I was BRCA2 in May and started on Lynparza shortly after chemo. And Dr. Thompson, who's right there, I started seeing her recently because I'm probably going to opt for a prophylactic double mastectomy, just not this year, unfortunately. But yeah, Tammy, I'm with you. My daughter just started going for her genetic testing and called me at 5 in the morning. She was an emergency and has an ovarian cyst. So needless to say, she's only 27 years old. Her name's Christina as well. She spells it almost like you, Dr. Thompson, with an H though. And it's been a very emotional day for sure. So But here I am, and we're all here, and I'm very grateful for that. I will say that. I'm very grateful to be alive.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to have you here. And like, you know, Tracy, like we were saying, it's such a scary, and, you know, especially when you have daughters dealing with this, and there's a whole other element to it, you know, fertility, and it's just, there's so many things. So I really appreciate all of you and all of your stories, and just being here, because it is pretty overwhelming. I don't know if we heard from, who are we missing?
Dr. Thompson, we didn't hear from her. If maybe you just want to do a short introduction, just so the girls know who you are.
Okay. I'm actually here just learning from everyone else. I'm Christina Thompson. I'm the breast surgeon in New York City at Lenox Hill. We got moved around because of COVID. So we're at Meath now, Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital, which is an awful name of a hospital. But yeah, I treat patients with benign and malignant breast disease, and I really focus in on patients with high risk and patients that are genetically predisposed. And I work very closely with plastic surgeons, and I'm trying to learn more about the ovarian cancer side, because I obviously don't know much about it except from what I learned way back when. And so, you know, I feel like the betterment of my career would be to know this side of it, because, you know, all of us oncologists we walk away from all of this saying, okay, we cured it. But I know that every piece of treatment and everything we do to try to cure it affects your guys' lives immensely. And so that's why I try to learn about this aspect of it. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. I think we missed, let's see, we missed 2 people. Who didn't go?
Ingrid and Toby.
What? Perfect. So Ingrid, you want to go first?
Sure. Was one of the women who was featured in the Nail Ovarian Cancer campaign when it originally started. My doctor is Dr. Aldridge from the University of Colorado, who I have to make a huge plug for her because she is a master surgeon and precision medicine specialist. There are over 30 types of different ovarian cancers, and I have one of the rare subtypes. So only 2% of all ovarian cancers are the type that I have. I was diagnosed randomly after I tore my abdominal muscle lifting weights, and I'm a stage 3C4 ovarian cancer. So our subtype generally does not harbor a BRCA mutation, but
Oh, we lost you. Ooh. Ingrid, we can't hear you. She totally went out. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Can you hear us, Ingrid? We can't hear you.
Oh, you couldn't hear me at all?
Out towards the end, I'm sorry.
Well, the majority of the women who have my subtype of ovarian cancer do not harbor a BRCA mutation. Many of us have grandmothers or somebody in our family who also have ovarian cancer. In my case, it was my grandmother, and she died when she was 48 years old. So it's not the same ovarian cancer. I have low-grade serous, but she did die of ovarian cancer also. And they wouldn't know at this point what that subtype of her ovarian cancer was. So they are treated differently, and mine's treated differently than those of you who are on here who have high-grade ovarian cancers. It's a little bit different.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, and we'll get more into your story so we can all find out a little bit more about each other. Let's see, Toby, you want to do a short introduction? Let's see if I can unmute you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead, Toby.
Hi. Actually, Tracy hired me after I was retired. She said, well, what are you going to do, Mom? So my job is to help each and every one of you, whether it's to deliver a package, whether it's to talk to one of your survivors, previvors, thrivers. I'm always here. So know that. And I'm behind you on all your journeys.
Thank you. Let's see, Akima?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm an old coworker, friend of Cam's. Sorry I can't turn my camera on. I had oral surgery, so my face is really big right now. But that's pale in comparison to what you ladies are going through and what you guys have been through. I'm just here to support everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Perfect. Thanks so much for coming on and for your support. I see Dr. Diaz is on. I don't know if he's available to pop on and say hi. I kind of kept this very informal for tonight, so I wanted to just bring this community a little closer together. Ovarian cancer hit my grandmother, not on my mom's side, on my dad's side at a later age. And I've always felt ever since I knew I was BRCA positive, the risks of ovarian cancer and hearing stories. And, yes, times have changed over the years and things have advanced in technology and treatments. But I feel like there's a lack of awareness. And working with Dr. Diaz and some of my other physicians that I work with so closely, I felt like September of this year for 2020 with COVID, let's just come together as a family. Let's support each other. Let's see how we can learn. I know some of us don't always have access to physicians or other girls who have gone through this journey and just need some advice. For example, one of our physicians are coming on that's a breast surgeon, right? That's what she does, with coming on to see what we have to say and what we feel and how she can interpret and maybe help her patients in a different manner than seeing them in their facilities. Seeing women and hearing their real stories sometimes I think is so imperative. And for me, I know sharing my journey has helped me through my life. And I know I have a couple women on the call that I caught, right at their diagnosis of either breast cancer or ovarian cancer, and have just watched them grow. And it touches my heart, and I feel like we just want to make sure that our community is there to come together. One of our board members, two-time ovarian cancer survivor, had a different course of ovarian cancer than Kamali did, but we're all still in the journey together. So again, I'm here to bring this together, share our stories. I've personally met Shirley in person. She was in Orlando. She was at our last event. I really wanted to bring women together that I knew that could really help each other grow. Just from Shirley coming here and being in my home for 3 hours changed my life on the look of ovarian cancer. And I'd like to maybe have her open up the night and just tell a little bit about her story, just so we can hear it from, from somebody who's walked in those shoes, who has kids or works or has a husband or doesn't have support. Again, any way that we can help you, if we're not helping you and you can benefit in another way, I'm always open to suggestions. I know Kate and Tammy are, and my mom as well. And we have Nail Ovarian Cancer on tonight, which is a new nonprofit that I started to work with. I've followed them for a little bit in their journeys, and I felt like their passion's there. They want to make a difference. They want a voice. They want to be heard. And when I talked to them, they were like, yes, let's do this call. I mean, we got this call together. And again, the support around us to have different resources, because in ovarian cancer, nonprofit is going to be able to offer a little more than I can for a survivor. Because yes, I can offer you my world. I can offer you everything, but some of the advice that you need from some survivors, we just might not have. So partnering with other nonprofits and just coming together is so imperative. At this time, I'd like to maybe pass it over to Shirley.
All right. I'm having a little trouble with the mute button, COVID problems, right? I have to say, Tracy, you were actually how I connected with you. I think you reached out to me. I'm not sure how but I remember when I found out I was BRCA positive, first of all, I had no idea, like, what is this? I had no real understanding of what was happening. You get diagnosed and then you find out there's a genetic mutation, and just so much is happening through treatment. And, Tracy was somebody that was kind of like a guide, like, okay, there are people out there around my age that understand what all of this is. And, I've been privileged to spend time in her home at an event that, was just very empowering and exciting to be a part of. And I think that's sort of middle of my story. At first, you know, when I was first diagnosed, it was July of 2017. I was the prior 2 years in the best shape physically and emotionally of my life. My health was great. I was focused on nutrition and, you know, just whole foods and just holistic living. And so I had a little bit of just some strange pain, but over the course of my life, I'd had some issues with irritable bowel. Actually, in my very early 20s, had a rare form of cervical cancer that they really don't know a lot about, but luckily was caught early. And, you know, so I'd always had some sort of just issues, I guess. And so when I started feeling some symptoms that in hindsight now I know were, you know, red flags, I really attributed it to, oh, I've not been eating well. I've, you know, not been taking care of myself. It's summertime. I've been overindulging, you know, my digestive system, you know. So anyway, about 2 weeks or so went by with just some intermittent symptoms. And then I started having some cramping when I would empty my bladder. And I thought, you know, maybe it's a UTI. Maybe that's what all this is. And then I had some pelvic pain that wouldn't let up, and couldn't get into my primary care doctor. So I went to our local emergency room and didn't expect, you know, even through the history that I gave them, they were thinking, you know, maybe this is, you know, colitis, diverticulitis, something with your, you know, my history sounded intestinal and GI related. And after the scan, you know, the doctor came back and shared with me that I needed to get, you know, on the phone right then and there with my gynecologist. And if I couldn't get an appointment, that she would get on the phone with them. And I knew then it was serious. It was a really hard thing to process. I had just lost my mom, who I was very close with, about 9 months, 10 months prior to a totally unrelated lymphoma that was pretty rare. And that was my first cancer experience really with someone that close to me. Anyway, went through total hysterectomy and tumor debulking, which was very optimal. And then in November, found out that I was BRCA positive and didn't really know what to do in terms of, at that point, you know, halfway through treatment, learning this information about genetic predisposition to breast cancer after this. And that's kind of when I started connecting with people and realizing that there was a greater community of people out there that were impacted, and could, you know, maybe provide a little community support. And that's one of the ways I got connected with Tracy. After finishing chemo in December of 2017, I went through the prophylactic double mastectomy in February. So I gave myself 2 months. My doctor told me, everyone that I'd spoken to said basically, you know, with the BRCA mutation, ovarian cancer is the lesser risk. And he said, for you, it was 100%. So it's likely that it's not if you develop breast cancer, it's when. So I felt the need to go ahead and do that as quickly as I could. And then worked through just kind of 2018, really trying to get back to some semblance of normalcy, which once you've had a cancer diagnosis really doesn't exist. I've found, and that's kind of when I got involved with the agency as I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I was contacted by an agency that provides that psychosocial support to women and caregivers of ovarian cancer. And I thought, well, why not put my two experiences together and maybe do some outreach with people, because it was something I felt like I had missed, you know, during my diagnosis, even though I have a very supportive family and friends. And I started working with them in December of 2018, and then in 2019 discovered I was having a recurrence. The recurrence was supposed to be pretty simple and straightforward. We were going to go in and get everything. We did surgery a second time, and during surgeries, when my oncologist discovered that it had metastasized to my liver and other areas that were not visible on the PET scan, and had a little bit of complications after that. Prior to starting chemo, I went through, I ended up with a pulmonary embolism after surgery, about 7-10 days probably after surgery. I was in the hospital for that. And then while in the hospital, being treated and managed for that pulmonary embolism, I ended up with a C. diff infection and colitis. So that was a little bit rough. By that point, I was starting to feel a lot less hopeful than I had the first time around. But then I was able to start chemo, and it was a lot more rough for me the second time, just because of all the complications. And of course, the second time around, your body's a lot more tired. And so I really started making sure to reach out to those community of people like Tracy and, you know, BRCA Strong, and trying to figure out ways to just keep my spirits going. And I know that that's something, you know, I'm thankful for, Tracy, that I don't know if I've ever really expressed to you as you know, much as it has meant to me, because I recognize that that's, you know, that support and that community of people who just get it, even when you don't have to say a word, or even when you're crying when you're talking, you know, which I've done plenty of. So I finished chemo again in August of 2019, and just couldn't get real clear scans. There were little parts that would show up on my scan in the last two scans that I had. So I had one in August, I had one in December, had another one in March of this year, and just couldn't get, you know, a one that said, you know, no evidence of disease. I started my PARP inhibitor because they figured, regardless, obviously there had been some good response to treatment, but there were still these lingering things, and that's just sort of part of recurrent metastatic ovarian cancer. And kept on the PARP inhibitor. I take Zejula. It was a little bit toxic at first. I had to take some time off, really went neutropenic. Tried to figure out, you know, had to figure out a dose that worked well for me. And I've been on it steadily since November at a low dose, and just had a scan in June, and that scan finally revealed no evidence of disease. So I'm, yeah, so, and it's it was a real big shock, because, you know, I thought, well, after 3 scans, I'm just going to keep doing this, and how long can I keep doing this? And then got that result, and have been really trying to continue to be cautiously optimistic. I'll remain on the PARP inhibitor indefinitely at this point. That's the plan. And in the event that I need chemo again, we'll address it. But now just trying to really continue to raise awareness and build community with other people. In the midst of my story, which I kind of left out, I did recognize that if I had only one thing that had happened throughout the course of my diagnosis that was important, it was that my 2 siblings, I have 4 other siblings, and 2 of them were also BRCA positive. So they went through both preventative surgeries. They had both had partial hysterectomies in the past, but they went and had tubes and ovaries out, which are much easier for me to say than the actual scientific name. And then preventative double mastectomies. But my one sister, actually, when she went and had her tubes removed, that doctor was like, yeah, everything looks great. We're just going to send this off to pathology to, you know, make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's. And she actually had stage 1 ovarian cancer. And so, you know, my experience, I knew at that point was worth it. Having essentially given her a 95% chance of survival. So that was, you know, to me, there was a purpose. And then I knew at that point, I just wanted to make sure that I reached out to others and gave them the same opportunity to feel a sense of community and support the way that Tracy and so many others have done for me. So thank you so much for inviting me here tonight.
I truly appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. As you know, you've been through it a little bit longer than some of the other women, and I know you support so many and help so many women. And I feel, again, you know, everybody's journey is different, and your journey can, you know, like I say all the time on my posts, right? Like your story can change somebody's life. You know, like you saved your sister's life, technically, you know, by having her do the testing and having her go through it. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing it, you know, in an open forum with people that you really don't know, you know, but education is really the key. And I feel like knowledge is power. And whether it's genetic testing or the gene mutation, you know, maybe you don't carry the gene. It's not you know, it's still, there's some kind of cancer and it's somewhere in our something, right? So what I'll do is, go ahead.
So I'm sitting here listening to your story, and I'm struck by it, and it might be because I'm sorry, I didn't catch. If you could just raise your hand, how many of you are BRCA positive? So I'm the only one who's not. And so I want to share with you that we are jealous of you. And one of the reasons that we are jealous of women who have BRCA mutations is because there is a lot of targeted therapy out there for you. We have none. So when you get your genetic report and it comes back, you literally are hoping that somebody says you have a BRCA mutation. And I smile at it now because I smile at it because I'm like, we're not different. You heard that you had a BRCA mutation and all of a sudden your head drops and you're like, oh, now I have to make all of these decisions. But truthfully and painfully, I have to say, it's easier for you to have a BRCA mutation than it is to have an ovarian cancer where there's not one. So the outreach piece of it is sensitive to ovarian cancer patients who are not BRCA strong. And I don't know how to really merge those two. Maybe you can help us or help me not feel that way, that we are part of the team.
So before all of this began, like the whole BRCA, right? Like obviously I'm the founder of this organization. So again, this isn't my family history. I don't know if my grandmother even carried the mutation. My mom, I don't know if she carried the mutation. I don't know where my mutation came from. So for me, yes, we have different journeys. Unfortunately, there's different medications, there's different procedures and protocols, but we're still all on that. Survivors, and thrivers, we're all together. We're not separate. And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in with a lot of people saying like, wow, how do you support survivors, breast cancer survivors? Just because I carry a mutation doesn't make us any different and doesn't make anything, because as an outsider of somebody who doesn't carry the mutation, it's not an easy decision just to say for us, oh, well, I'm BRCA positive, let's be preventative. Because at the end of the day, like, for example, my chance of getting ovarian cancer was 86%. So the 12% said to me in my brain, how do you balance out? So for me, we're all equal. Unfortunately, sometimes different medications, different therapies have to go different routes. So I don't know if that explains it to you a little better.
Yeah, I think that just having the conversation about it is probably where the power lies. But it's also like, truly, we wish we had a BRCA mutation. And it honestly is because there's so many treatments that are available to you that are not available to you if you don't have a BRCA mutation. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Like, we can't have PARP inhibitors and different things like that.
So for example, right, I had a full hysterectomy. I can't go on hormones. I at 32 years old, I had a full hysterectomy, and my physicians say, don't go on hormones.
Yeah.
So here I am in full-blown menopause at 32 years old, taking
like estrogen, right?
Right. So there's no accurate screenings, obviously, right? For ovarian cancer, there's no definitive guidelines. And I don't know if Dr. Diaz, maybe you want to pop in and give some information. I don't know, maybe Dr. Diaz, maybe if you can, I don't know if you're available to like maybe pop in and kind of relate, obviously, as you know how we all of the women and how I feel we're all equal in this community. I don't know if maybe, so Dr. Diaz, just so you know, is one of our physicians that comes on and speaks all the time. He's a gynecological oncologist in Miami. And I'll let him do a short introduction and see how he can help us all be on the same page and understand, because I understand your concern and like your question.
Oh, it's not. I'm just simply saying, like, our roads are very different, and right now BRCA has been highly studied, so there is just a wealth of like ways to target it that are not the same when you don't have the mutation.
Yeah, so I just want to, first of all, thank you, Tracy, for inviting me and for all the work that you do, and you guys for sharing. I love being a part of these phone calls, and I love just listening. I learn a lot that I can apply to my own patients and how to approach not just, you know, the medicine part. That part's easy for me. I know all that. It's how to, you know, relate, how to get my patients through treatment and then support them afterwards. So thank you again for being a part of this. Yeah. So I just want to make a quick point about the BRCA mutation. So right now, PARP inhibitors are approved for all ovarian cancers, regardless of BRCA mutation. So if you have a BRCA mutation in the upfront setting, you're eligible to get one type of PARP inhibitor. If you don't carry that mutation, you're still eligible to get a PARP inhibitor. There's a different one. And in the recurrent setting, again, you're eligible for PARP inhibitors regardless of your BRCA status. Now, having said that, we know that patients who carry the BRCA mutation tend to respond better to PARPs. And so that is true. But all ovarian cancer patients are eligible for PARP inhibitors. If I remember, and I apologize, I came a little late, I had another call I was on, but I think you had mentioned that you have a low-grade serous ovarian cancer. Is that correct?
I do, yeah. And I happen to have a BRCA mutation and KRAS, so that opens up to something different for me as well. But generally,
yeah,
it's
and so
hard to get our
low-grade
hands on.
serous, yeah, as you said, are very different than high-grade serous cancers.
Correct.
Although we lump them all together as ovarian cancer, the reality is we're learning more and more that these are all very different cancers, and so we make it easy for us at least to lump them together, but they're very different entities, and we are moving towards the treatment of cancers, not where they start. So not because it started in the ovary or the fallopian tube, but we're starting to move to, you know, personalized medicine where, okay, it doesn't matter where your cancer started. What is the gene profile of your cancer? So do you carry a KRAS mutation, and then treat that way? And so there is a new medication that they finished a study, and it's not even, and it's not even on most insurance's formularies, but I do have 3 patients on the medication who have done excellent for it, and you just have to give the insurance company a copy of the study and they'll approve it. So we are, you know, coming up with new discoveries that are unique to what kind of cancer you have. So certainly MEK inhibitor is really not a role for high grade, but certainly for low grade. So we are learning more, but just to clarify, you know, if you have a high grade serous ovarian fallopian tube primary peritoneal, you can be treated with a PARP inhibitor. And so we are getting, you know, more and more options for patients.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Kamali, let her share her story. And then what we can do is at the end of everybody's story, we'll go ahead and let everybody ask if they have questions. So I guess before we start with Kamali, let's see, does anybody have any questions or anything for Shirley before we continue? And obviously we're all open in the chat. You guys can chat and text away if you have any questions too. So I invited Kamali on tonight as I met her kind of more in the beginning of her journey, maybe as she was starting treatment. And I've just followed her and watched her grow and feel the power and the strength. And, you know, sometimes the struggle, just checking in on some of our friends, you know, just picking up the phone and saying, how are you? You know, like sometimes I'll just text Aaliyah and I text her at like crazy times. She's probably like, what is this lady doing? But like just to check in on somebody. And I feel like the power and strength that she's gone through and all the phases that she's faced, and is gonna decide if she's gonna move forward with her surgeries. I felt like having her on tonight and seeing different stages of the journeys, you know, as she was diagnosed first and then found out she was BRCA. So I feel her story can help and guide other women. So I thank you for coming on and sharing. I know it's probably very new to you, and I know in the beginning you were open to it, and I'm really thankful for you to come on and share and open your heart to talk to women who are just here to listen, you know.
Gosh, well, thank you again. Surely I have tons of questions for you at some point, but I'll go easy on you tonight. It's, oh my goodness, where do I start? So in 2011, I realized that I had fibroids, not a big deal. Life went on. I was always very fit. I'm that annoying person that will not take the elevator or the escalator, and I'll walk up 10 flights to my apartment. I go to the gym. I prepare my own meals, the whole thing. So 2011, I have fibroids. Everything's fine. Not a big deal. Going on with life. 2018, I started having kind of intermittent bleeding. And I was dating a gynecologist, and he said that something's up and you should go see your gynecologist. And I did. I went to see my gynecologist November 2018. He said, you know, you're in your early 40s and your body's just starting to change. There's nothing to worry about, really. My then boyfriend, again, who's a gynecologist, wasn't convinced, but he let it go. And I was just like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. But in June of last year, I really wasn't feeling too great. And I went back to my gynecologist for the second time in 7 months. And he finally ordered an ultrasound. Called me early July, said everything looks great. If you want to have the fibroids removed because they are slightly larger, here's the name to an interventional radiologist at Lenox Hill. He's great, the chief of the department. Fine. I said, that's summer. I'll tuck the number. I tucked the number away and said I'd revisit it in the fall. In the meantime, I met a really wonderful, wonderful man, and we embarked on this amazing love story. But I was not feeling too great. I was popping Midol, and I hate medicine, but I was just popping Midol, Tylenol, anything I could get my hands on. There were a lot of what were supposed to be romantic holidays and trips where I was just on the floor crying. I didn't know what was wrong. Finally, I called the interventional radiologist at Lenox Hill, and he remarked my stomach was distended, and it was really at this point distended. And we set a date for a fibroid embolization, just procedure, routine, get rid of these fibroids, great. Have an MRI as part of the workup to get clearance for this procedure. And he called me on a Friday night as I was entering a restaurant and said, we're gonna be canceling your embolization. This is October 17th is when I met him, so a few days later. We're canceling the embolization, and you have to see an oncologist, Kamali. And I kind of was sarcastic. I was like, oncologists are for cancer patients. I kind of laughed at him, like, I don't know if you know what you're talking about. That Wednesday, he actually made the appointment for me to see an oncologist, a gynecologic oncologist. And before I knew it, I was on an operating table about 2 weeks later. At this point, we're in November, just before Thanksgiving. And it had spread to my colon, had a colon resection, 15 lymph nodes removed, full hysterectomy, stage 3C. And she gave me enough time to get myself together, stronger, a little bit stronger, and had my port put into my peritoneal port put in so that I could have those 18 infusions of chemotherapy intravenously and of course through the port in my abdomen. so I could get those abdomen washes. Not fun. And I slowly just started, my life just unraveled right before my eyes. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand what happened. I couldn't believe it. I was healthy. I was fine. I was fit. I had a new boyfriend. Like, come on. Life was great. I'm a real estate agent. My kids just graduated from college. And my life just fell apart. And I finished chemotherapy in April. Couldn't even understand who I was looking at. Every time I'd look in the mirror, I was bald and bloated and no eyebrows. And that was the hardest part for me, is losing my eyebrows and my eyelashes. I remember walking through Central Park and losing kind of that one eyelash that was just holding on for dear life. Yeah.
We're all here for you, and that's why organizations like BRCA Strong exist, so that we can hold each other in spaces like this, where we're talking to people who have had this experience, who understand that feeling, and who get the fear and the strangeness. It's all so, you feel like you're in some other planet. This is not my life. I'm living outside myself,
Yeah.
And it's okay. This is the safe space. This is where everybody hears you and you don't have to say a word.
Thank you. I finished chemotherapy, found out that I was BRCA positive. No one in my family has cancer. No one on either side. Shirley, you said something about being kind of the one to sound the alarm for your family. I couldn't imagine having to see my children go through this. Even my mom, she works so hard, and to see her, God forbid, had she ever come down with something like this, or come down, to be diagnosed with cancer at this point in her life, or my little brother, he's a man, an adult man, but he has young children, and I'm grateful that it was me. My mutation, actually, there's a little bit of an allele. I have the genetic counselor that went over my case said he could only find 16 other people who have who have a decreased chance of actually getting ovarian or breast cancer. And I got it. I got ovarian. And I'm, again, the first one in my family. And it could be that I'm the only one that has it. I hope that's the case. It could be that something in my environment triggered it. I was in the dust cloud on September 11th. And I also worked down there until the dangerous time, which was September 11th through May of 2002. I was there that whole time. So it could have been that something triggered. And ovarian cancer is actually the only gynecologic cancer that's approved by the World Trade Center Health Organization. And at this point, I actually do find something I make it my goal every day to find something to be happy about. I am generally very happy. I don't cry as often as I used to. I am still mourning, I guess, the person that I was, because I know that I am forever changed. I liked who I was before all of this, so I didn't love it when people would say to me, "You're going to be a much better person after this." I thought I was pretty phenomenal back then as well. But I'm here, and I'm really grateful for all of you. I've met some incredible women throughout this journey, and I am so thankful for that. You really know who your friends are. My existing friends, my friends from my before, they stepped up in ways that they were there 5 a.m. for surgery. Yeah, And that's it. That's my story. I'm on Lynparza, and I understand that it delays the time to recurrence. I understand that I probably will have a recurrence at some point. So all the more important to make every day count. Even the hard days, they count. That's it. That's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing. It was so brave and courageous of you to come on. And I know it's not an easy story to talk about, but coming to a safe zone where you're around women who have either gone through it or supported women or have family members. So always remember, Kamali, you know how to reach us at any time because we're always here to help you. I'm going to connect you with Shirley. We'll figure out how to connect you ladies. Shirley's powerful too. Her information, she'll get it through. Let's see. So what we're gonna do now is I guess we can go into the nail ovarian. We could talk a little bit about that. You guys I don't know who wants to speak a little more between Jen and Ingrid and see how you guys want to talk about it and share your information, because I'd love the girls to hear about the Nail Ovarian Cancer Project and hear a little bit more about your mission and what you guys are doing.
You want to go, Jen?
Yeah, or you can if you want to start. The main thing is that we would love this group to know, and we're so, I'm personally just so grateful to be at this level, of the deep end of the pool, right? Of this, our goal is really casting that wide net and getting, we've reached out already to more than 1 million kind of what we call qualified women in kind of the age 30 to 50 that are completely unaware, right, of ovarian cancer. Everyone knows, PINK and breast cancer. Even when Allison and I started this project, we had no idea the color was teal. We were like, oh, wow, we can do something with that, right? And then as we started to dive deeper, a lot of communities were doing, teal talks and even things with nails and different, ways in to open up the conversation, which is amazing. So we're really just happy to be part of the conversation. But for this group, our oncologists in Denver are Dr. Jill Aldridge and Dr. Guntapalli, and they have offered their time for the month of September to field any questions. So I'd first of all like to open that up to the group. So you can reach out to Allison or myself or direct message. We're just at Nail Ovarian Cancer. So that's definitely a resource that we would love to offer this group. And then Allison, you can kind of talk about what we've got going on for our September outreach and our campaign, which is again, sort of more lighthearted and I don't want to say, fun, but it is about, again, we're playing on this awareness level to try to get, mass awareness so that we can raise some serious money for research, really push for, early detection, awareness of symptoms and, advocation for getting the BRCA test, getting vaginal ultrasounds, doing everything that we possibly can to empower our health. And, it is so inspiring just to hear the stories I've heard today, because every story, just counts so much and has so much weight. We do a lot with facts and statistics and, every 23 minutes a woman is diagnosed, or, 1 in 70 in the general, population will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer. But, the spectrum is so great, right? Like everybody's experience and journey needs to be heard. And that's why we really want to, promote and further the teal talks, because I think that's where we're going to win at this, is really creating a wave of conversation and knowing that everybody fits in to that conversation on any level, whether or not it doesn't affect you at all. God bless you for the for the rest of your life. You're untouched by ovarian cancer. You are great. But you still need to know about it, and you know, check it off your self-care and your health empowerment list, right? To the other end of, you know, where you're really deeply involved and you know, in the middle of you know, of everything going down. So hopefully, you know, we just started 8 months ago. We just really feel like we have some meaningful traction and resources, and we really want to learn and, you know, from what our community needs and kind of, you know, work our program and respond around that.
Yeah, and one of the things that we did in July was, obviously, I mean, the nail ovarian cancer was a verb of nailing ovarian cancer, but also before COVID, the thought was that there was this play on words to have women go out and get their nails done in teal. And so we were just crossing our fingers that by this time of the year, people would be kind of out and going back to salons and things like that. So in July, when we realized that that likely wasn't happening, we reached out to some nail artists, and it's quite a thing right now, especially in this younger 30, 40, you know, I think it's a creative outlet for people too. And we're all doing, you know, anything we can to make ourselves feel a little bit like there's some physical self-care going on, because we all know how rarely we shower these days in COVID. So, so we got some traction with a couple of giveaways, and we ended up working with a women-owned company in Seattle called Loud Lacquer. And they have this really pretty color of teal polish. And they said to us, let's partner again in September. Well, ironically enough, their teal sold out. And they came back and said, we still want to do something, even though we can't be pushing people to our site to buy teal polish. So they're actually, we're giving, for every teal mani or pedi that is posted on either Instagram or Facebook this month, and with the hashtags nail ovarian cancer and Loud Lacquer, we are donating $1, and Loud Lacquer is donating $1 to ovarian cancer research. So that would be probably another ask, would be to just share that. I think that even though we're not seeing as many people in the world as we used to, it's inevitable that someone's gonna compliment you on your teal nails. Maybe all of you ladies already do something that is teal to get the conversation started. And I think that one final thought I have is so many women that I talk to hear their stories say that the first time they go to their doctor to advocate, it's just blown off. And I think this is an interesting thing for you, Christina, because I don't, you know, you're not the general practitioner that people are seeing first, but I do think that there is a gap in just doctors taking these symptoms seriously. And we do know our bodies best. And when we are told by, you know, an organization like Nail Ovarian Cancer, if you have bloating or lower back pain or bleeding between periods for over 2 weeks, you've got to advocate. And then to think that it takes someone probably a couple months to just get up the courage to have that appointment, and then to be told, oh, it's nothing. A woman I was talking to, Mary, a year ago, May, was told, oh, it's nothing. And by September, stage 3. And if it would have been taken seriously in May, the whole trajectory of her life would have been different. So I don't know how to start that conversation. I don't know enough doctors. I'm not in that world, but I think that's a really important part of this whole process, is that when we go in and say that we know something's up, doctors need to believe us. And I have been told, somebody posted on one of somebody commented on one of our posts saying, make sure that if you are not taken seriously and not scheduled for an ovarian ultrasound, that you say, I would like to make sure that you put this in your notes of my records that I asked and it was declined. And typically it sounds like that changes the.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like, and that's even interesting for these stories here, because it sounds like that's not even a clear, like, right? Like, I mean, it's not like if you do get the vaginal ultrasound and nothing shows up, and or a fibroid or something shows up, it seems like that's not, it doesn't discount cancer, right? And so that's kind of a question that I had as well is, you know, I guess from a doctor's perspective, you know, is it better to advocate for every single woman to get a genetic test?
So things are moving in that direction. I mean, you know, this is a different area of the body that I treat, but we are moving in that direction that there's research and there's numbers, you know, showing us that the NCCN guidelines of who gets genetic testing and who doesn't is missing 50% of our genetic mutations. So ASBS, American Society of Breast Surgeons, last year on Valentine's Day, so February of last year, released that you know, every woman with the diagnosis of breast cancer, no matter what the age, should be getting a genetic test, because, you know, insurances weren't even covering if the patient had just breast cancer and then had all these other things not checking the boxes of NCCN guidelines. So, you know, ASBS is showing the numbers saying 50% of genetic mutations are being missed. So I think with that step, I think we're going to get closer to, you know, where we live in a country of preventative medicine and we want to catch these things early, that it should start at the primary care level, the genetic testing. I think that we are moving that direction, but, you know, more and more research and more funds, you know, we're getting genetic testing down to smaller copays and stuff like that. So I think we're slowly moving in that direction. I totally agree with you with that. For the brushing off the symptoms comment you had earlier, I completely agree that there are some, I mean, it's a lot of things, right? It's, first of all, you know, what we're talking about a lot lately is, do women just get brushed off for everything they say? I mean, that's definitely something we all deal with, and it's definitely something that we deal with in this field. In medicine in general, are they just, you know, I'll go there. Are they just whining? Are they just complaining? You know, like, that's the stigma that we women have. And, you know, primary cares should be educated not just to listen to their patients, but also, you know, I'm trying to set out to educate primary cares to know, okay, this is a red flag. Because we're even to the point where sometimes someone sees pancreatic cancer in a family history and they don't rush off to send it to a specialist. So there's a lot of education that needs to get out there.
I can say from like a genetic standpoint, right? Like, I was diagnosed pre-Angelina Jolie in 2004. I had 2 breast lumpectomies at 18 years and 19 years old that were benign. So genetic testing has come a long way. I just hope, like you said, you know, if every woman's screened, I just hope the right person's screening them. I know several people that have gone to like their family doctors, their OBGYNs, or, oh, their friend's a doctor and they're going to order genetic testing, or they're going to do 23andMe, you know. Yeah, we can all say it's great to know you have a genetic mutation, but at the end of the day, obviously, as you guys, some of us can relate, it's really not. And knowing sometimes before can be easy, but your decision's never an easy decision to make. And with that, you know, I kind of want to turn it over to Tammy, who's one of our board members, just to kind of share a little bit of her story and why I actually wanted her to talk tonight and share her story, because we're caught at different stages in life. You know, you could have stage 0, you can have stage 3, you can have metastatic, and you can have the mutation, you can not have the mutation. You know, in a way, thank God somebody did find out there's genetic mutations out there to help some of us women. Some of us, unfortunately, don't have it in our genes, but I don't think any of us ever really want to know that we really carry the gene. I have 2 kids. You know, just like Kamali, my daughter looked at me dead in my face last week and said, well, I have a, you know, 87% chance for breast cancer and a 77 for ovarian cancer. She's 11 years old. I'm like, what? I don't want my kid worrying about that, but this is the world, unfortunately, you know, that we have. So I think genetic testing or not, and, you know, I'm sure Tammy can relate, as I'm going to pass it over to her, is she didn't find out she was BRCA and she had ovarian cancer twice.
So yeah, my story is a lot different than everybody on this call, in the sense that in 1998, I was 19 years old, and well, just to give you a little bit of my background, everybody in my family dies of cancer. Everybody. Really traumatic, really terrible. My mother had multiple myeloma. She was sick for years. She was in and out of chemo and radiation. My mother's sister had ovarian cancer. My mother's brother had brain cancer. My mother's other brother had liver cancer. My aunt died of pancreatic cancer. You know, the BRCA gene is like a death sentence sometimes. It's what it feels like when it's terrifying, because when you're in this experience and you're watching everybody around you sick all the time, and you grow up around sick people. I have a sister who has like 10 different autoimmune diseases that probably have something to do with genetics. And so I grew up in hospitals. I grew up around sick people all the time. And it was just, you know, to find out that there's kind of this weird like reckoning. Like, I found out I had the gene. So wait a minute, all of this makes sense. Now I understand why all of these people have been sick and why this has been happening in my family. But now I'm terrified, because I'm going to give this to my kid, and it's just going to be something I'm going to continue to pass on. When I was 19 years old, I had a lot of pain and just, I think my mother thought I was pregnant. I'll be honest with you. Like, she took me to her, she said, I think she really thought I was knocked up, because I just kept complaining all the time. And she was like, we are going to the gynecologist. We're handling this right away. And we went to the gynecologist, and long story short, they found out that I had the very early stages of ovarian cancer. And my mother's sister had it so badly when she was about 40 years old. So, and this was, I mean, my aunt is now like 80 something. So you can imagine what treatment was like that many years ago. So my mother immediately just kind of handled everything. And I just remember it all being a real blur, like just going to the doctor with, it was like, I closed my eyes and she just took the wheel and all of that. And then at 39 years old, I finally got a job that I'm a single mom. So just to give you, like, I had a lot of trouble getting, you know, I caught everything early. I was able to get pregnant once, even though I was married for close to 20 years and never got pregnant other than that one kind of fluke time. Always had issues with fertility, and which was really stressful. And I had a horrible pregnancy, horrible time carrying my child, just all kinds of issues. And finally got a job that had medical insurance, because, you know, it's expensive to go to the doctor when you don't have insurance. And I found this great primary care physician that said, let's talk about your medical history. And I talked about my medical history. He said, well, tell me about your family. So when I had just lost my mom a few years prior to that, and went through going with her to the doctor and all the radiation and the chemo. And I was very traumatized by the entire experience. You know, our mothers are like these pillars in our lives, you know? And so I started explaining to him all these different family members. He said, you've got to get tested for the BRCA gene. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what is that? What is a genetic? I hadn't even heard of it. Mm-hmm. So I took the test, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't even know what this is. And then I get the diagnosis, and I had pain. One of the reasons that I had gone to him was because I was having pain again. Sent me to a gynecologist, found out that I had ovarian cancer again in my like late 30s. So finding out that I had the gene and a reoccurrence of ovarian cancer as a single mom, the only support system for my kid, I immediately had a hysterectomy, had a bilateral mastectomy with a latissimus dorsi flap reconstruction, tons of complications. And for like 2 years, I was just on this surgical journey of trying to stop myself from getting sick. And within that process, I'm sitting in the same hospital rooms that my mother was in. I'm going through that whole fertility, realizing like, I fought so hard to have this one kid, and I really just wanted to have one more, and now that's not going to happen. So there's all this emotional trauma that really comes with, this is, you know, you start to kind of feel like, this is going to sound like a little bit, is this the end? Is this the end of my family? Am I never going to be able to do this again? Or what if my kid has this? You know, and it's this, you live in this constant state of like PTSD, and you're always worried about something, and you're worried about your family. And Because I had the full hysterectomy, I thought, well, I'm not going to get it again. They took everything out. I'll be okay. BRCA strong. I'm learning about all of these possibilities. So I'm really conscious and taking care of myself because I did have a reoccurrence, and I was very lucky both times that I had incredible advocates in my life. My mother being the first one, and she was the first warrior that I ever knew, and the strongest woman that I ever knew. And I oftentimes feel like she's still around, even though she's not here, protecting me and somehow behind the scenes, making sure that I get all these tests done. And because I found out about my BRCA gene, my cousin who left the call a little bit earlier, she got tested for the BRCA gene, found out she has breast cancer. So a lot of information, it's just important that we share this information and we share our experience and we share our gene experience with as many people as we can. I feel very, very lucky and blessed that I was able to have at least one child and catch these two things really early. But I carry this weight with me for the rest of my life, this fear and this weight. And having an organization like BRCA Strong, where I'm talking to other women that understand what it's like to go through this while you're watching your mom be sick, or to have all these memories and this stress and this trauma of family members, and worrying about your own children and passing on this gene, and how to teach your kids to look out for the things that you didn't know how to look out for. I'm very grateful to Tracy, to this organization, to Kate, who was the first one that found me online, and to be able to connect with a community of people that really get it, because people that aren't in it don't get it.
Thank you, Tammy, for sharing your story. Thank you to everybody that came on tonight, that came on and shared their story. No one should feel alone. We're here to support everybody. Again, I want to go back to, even though if you don't carry the BRCA gene, we do still support any woman who's a survivor, thriver, provider. And if there's anything out there that you need that we can help you to get through your journey, we'd love to. As you can reach out to myself, Tammy, or Kate. We'd love to be able to help you and guide you any way that we can. Sending love and prayers to all of you. I know some of us are having a hard time right now and going through some struggles. And if you want to personally message me, call me or text me. I think everybody has my number. If not, I'm happy to share it with you guys. I really want to thank you guys for sharing your powerful journeys. And for me, I get